Hello, everyone. Welcome to the USA Personal Finance Edition. This is episode 4. My name is Hui-chin Chen. I'm your guide through this video series. And today we're going to talk about Social Security and Medicare. So those are actually pretty large topics. I'm not sure I can actually cover every single details. In a short 15 or 20 minutes that I plan to be with you today. However, what I'm planning to do is follow the natural progression when we started this series. So we started with credit. Let's say you move to the US and you just support yourself. The first thing is renting apartments, getting a life set up, and having a credit report. It's very important for you to just be able to set your life up, even if you do not have the need for borrowing any significant amount of money yet, like mortgage. And then we move on to, okay, so the next step is trying to establish employment and be able to earn a living for yourself to survive in the US. And now let's say you've seen your first pay stub and you got your first paycheck in your bank account. So you might notice that the first thing got taken out of your account, in addition to income tax, which we will cover next in the next episode, is something called Fica Taxes. So they could either be noted as OASDI, so it stands for old age and disability, or it could also be referred to as FICA, or it might even just be simply be referred to as payroll tax. So all of this, you will notice it adds up to, if you're just a simple employee, you're not a self-employed person, you'll notice that it adds up to over 7% of your paycheck that's automatically taken out. So you might be wondering, okay, so I'm paying into this taxes, so do I actually get anything out of it? So the good news is that technically you do, but there's also bad news, which I will cover later. So let's start with talking about what is Social Security and Medicare, which is what the payroll tax is paying for. And here I'm going to show you a simple slide like all the other episodes. Okay, so think about Social Security and Medicare as separate systems. So they're actually not the same. And as you can see, Social Security cover retirement, disability, and for survivor benefits. So it might cover people with a pass away early to support their some support from the government for their family. And Medicare is actually more like an insurance program. You might hear a lot of political debate about having a national health insurance program in the US. You might have come from a country that already have one. But it's basically a national health insurance program. So because it has a large amount for pool of people, it also has lower premium. However, it is only available for elderly. So here, elderly is defined as somebody who is at least 65 years of age, and for people who are disabled. So they become disabled before they reach their retirement age, and people who have debilitating diseases like cancer. There are certain specific special medical conditions that are listed. If you are diagnosed with those kind of conditions with a proper documentation, you can also apply for Medicare before you reach age 65. All right, so as you can see, like I said, Medicare is an insurance program. So you're actually paying to it even while you're a beneficiary. And today we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about Medicare because, like I said, it's technically insurance, and there's actually an episode there we're going to talk about insurance. So what you can keep in mind right now is just that it's both. So while you're working, you pay a contribution, which is 1.35% of your salary, into this Medicare trust fund that the government runs. And out of this trust fund, government pays for people who are eligible to join this insurance program. So only people who are eligible, the elderly and the disabled. But under most circumstances, these people still need to pay into the Medicare program in the form of premium. So there is certain parts of the program that are free, and there are other parts of the program that require more contribution. So it's kind of like your private health insurance, either from your employer or from the exchange. Okay, so today we're going to focus more on Social Security. So Social Security is out of the above 7% of your paycheck, only 1.35% go to Medicare. So you can see over 6% goes to Social Security. So it is kind of like a public pension, but it covers not just retirement, it covers also disability. And more importantly, it is a system where you support people who are currently benefiting. So let me put it this way. As you can see on the chart, you most likely are, if you're not currently taking any benefits from Social Security, you are the people who are earning wages, or your spouse is the person who is earning wages. And their employers also pay the equal contribution into both the Social Security and Medicare system or the trust funds. They have individual trust funds. You are not paying into your individual accounts. So basically you're paying into this trust fund, government manages it, and then government pays the beneficiaries, who are the people who are currently eligible to take benefits from Social Security. So people who are already retired, people who are disabled, or people who are survivors who are taking care of underage children, but their spouses passed away before retirement age. So the idea is really that you're not contributing on your own, you're contributing for others. So that's the interesting part of Social Security, because a lot of people who thinking about when they're at the time they should start taking Social Security, they have this concept in mind, well, I have contributed, so I need to get something out of it. So I just want to let you know that it is very possible under certain circumstances that you would pay into Social Security for your entire life and you do not extract any benefit out of it. For example, if you pass away before your Social Security age, you were healthy, you just suddenly get hit by a car, you don't have any dependents, and you were never married. In this case, most of you most likely were married. Then there were no survivors to take your benefits. So you're the contributor to the system and you never extract any benefits out of it. So it is how the system is designed. But you might also have heard about the whole idea of, well, can the Social Security go bankrupt? And this is actually something that has been coming out over and over, several political cycles. You will hear this again, well, the Social Security Trust Fund is going to go bankrupt. So it is possible under the current law that Social Security will not be able to fund itself. That is why it requires the Congress to change its system. That means that it is possible, in order to let Social Security function, the future beneficiary may end up with less benefit. So these are all up in the air things. And of course, people who are already currently taking benefits are not going to want to give out their benefits. So it's a tricky situation. But we're not going to go into all of that. Today, we're going to cover under Social Security sort of the basics. So I already talked about the contribution part. So if you're working, you're not retirement age, you're not disabled, you don't have breadwinner died in a family, most likely you're the contributor part of the system. And basically the only thing you need to know is that 7.65% of your income, every paycheck, will go into these two separate systems. And so so you might be thinking, okay, so what do I get out of it? So how do I qualify or become eligible for these benefits? So those rules are actually quite complicated, so I'm not going to go into every single detail. But the idea is that you need to have at least 40 credits for retirement benefits, which for people who are not already taking, or people who are younger, like let's say still in, under 50 or under 60, most likely their full retirement age is 67. So you, right now, according to law, so that could change in the future. So that means you will not be able to take any retirement benefit until retirement age. That being said, there's actually several different ages that you can take retirement income. Before we get to that, going back, I think I forgot, I was going to cover eligibility. So in order to be eligible, you need to have 40 credits. So how are the credits calculated? So basically, credits are kind of like a quarterly system. So technically, you need to earn a certain amount of income per quarter to earn a credit. So as you can tell, 40 credits equals 10 years. So under most circumstances, you need 10 years of work history, and that work history must earn you salary or some kind of income to be about 5,500 right now, I believe, for this year, for the entire year. So for each quarter, you only need to earn a little bit over $1,000. So over the entire year, earn over 5,500 and continuously do that for 10 years, then you will qualify for taking any benefit, right? So that's for people who are working. Then how about, so for people who never worked? So it is still possible to get Social Security if you've never worked. And most likely you're getting it from your spouse's or your parents' work history. So in this case, your benefits is also it's dependent on the spouse or the parents who their work history. So they have to meet those criteria as well. They'll need to have worked for 10 years, and each year to earn, around $5,500 per year in order to even qualify for taking any benefit. Okay, so, but everybody's not getting the exact same benefit. So the benefit is actually calculated based on your income. So that is why people feel more entitled, in a sense, for people who have been paying into the system more, meaning those people earned more money. So they have paid into the system more, and they feel like they need to get something out of it. And it is, in that sense, fair that their benefits is actually higher than people who are only earning, $5,500 a year. Even though they qualify to get a benefit from Social Security, their benefit is calculated based on the salary that they put in. So this covers basically just the contribution part. So I mentioned a little bit about, so when can you actually get the benefit? So let's start with early as possible. So obviously, if you're disabled early, as long as you qualify for those criteria, you can start getting the disability income. And the earlier you become disabled, actually the criteria is much looser, because they recognize that it's not your fault you become disabled. So you do not need to meet the 10-year rule as much. You most likely have to meet the rules that before you became disabled, the few years or even the few quarters immediately before you became disabled, you were working and earning an income. And for retirement, that's the interesting thing, because that's where a lot of the strategies come in. Remember when I said that people, so for retirement age right now, for people who are under 60 years old, most likely would be age 67. However, that doesn't mean you can only start getting Social Security when you're 67. In fact, you can start getting Social Security when you're 62, no matter what your full retirement age is. However, your Social Security benefits is basically forever reduced if you start. It's basically a haircut of your full retirement age benefit, and every year you took early. So you can start taking it from age 65, age 64, or the earliest age 62. Every year there is a haircut applied to the full retirement age benefit. So some people I've encountered, they wanted to start as early as possible because they feel like if they started too late, they will never, what if they die early? So that's more I want to get the benefit out of the program approach. Of course, this kind of approach works for some people. For example, if you simply don't need a lot of income, even with a haircut income, you can support yourself, but you really need this, right? You don't otherwise have a lot of savings or a lot of investments. So for people in that situation, start taking early, might make sense. However, there's also the other spectrum is, even though the full retirement age is 67, you do not have to actually take it. The maximum age you can delay Social Security payment is age 70. So for every extra year that you delay, the Social Security Administration give you extra credit. So instead of a haircut, if you took it early, you get extra credit for delaying it. So when you're age 70, when you start taking the benefits, it will actually be higher. And right now, I believe every additional year from 67 to 70, every additional year you get 8% extra. So that's equivalent of 8% return. That's a lot of money. So it's likely that if you heard a lot of the advisors talking, or even just like personal finance commentary, they would say, well, think about whether you want to delay it if you don't need to take it right away, like if you have other assets that can support you, or if you're still working, when you're 67, there's no reason to take Social Security, because every year you delay it, you get an 8% extra benefit. So today, I'm not able to actually get into all the different strategies of when you should take income, because as a married couple, there are actually different strategies for people to take income at different time, especially if the spouse will be dependent on the other spouse's work history. So it can become very complicated, but today I want to actually throw that idea out there that if you are closer to the age than myself, so it's something that you actually need to put some thought into, instead of just saying, oh, I can take it at 62, I'm just going to take it. So there are actually many different strategies to get the most benefit for you, not necessarily monetarily, but the thing that works the most in your situation. I know there's also the survivor's benefit, but I'm not going to cover that as much. The one thing I just want to mention is that, for example, if your spouse is the main breadwinner, then this is something you might want to research. It will be a benefit that will be immediately available to you, especially if you have minor age children. It may not be available to you if you do not have children, and because this is a benefit that only available if you are supporting minor children. But the survivor benefit is available if you don't have children when you become closer to retirement age. So it is slightly complicated on who qualifies, but just to throw it out there, if you have children, you're currently not working, and your spouse is the primary winner, that's something that you need to look into, just as for your knowledge. So for those two programs, because they are, like I say, I think I already mentioned, complicated several times, for all the detailed laws and information, you can find for Social Security under ssa.gov, and for Medicare is just under medicare.gov. So those are all public information that you're supposed to be able to get. Although when you call them or go into their office, they may not give you, the strategy, like what's the best for your situation, but they can explain the rules pretty well for you. All right. So what are the takeaways in addition to some of the things that I've talked about? one main thing, in addition to just knowing that, oh, you have the benefits, is that making sure your records are correct. So it's the same idea that I mentioned during the credit report broadcast. I think that is episode 2. I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so you can see me when I talk about these 3 takeaways. So the Social Security statement is also that's something that it's updated yearly as Social Security Administration get the data from IRS is reported from your employer that you've paid the Social Security taxes. These were your income. So if you have never seen one, perhaps ask your spouse to get his if you have never worked in the US. If you want to see what the calculation might look like, what the work history might look like, you might want to see your spouse's statement. But if you have ever worked at all, that paid into the Social Security system, you should be able to get your own. In fact, if you ever have a Social Security number, if you have your own number, if you have never paid into the system, you're supposed to be able to get a statement. It will just show that you have never worked. So your earning history will be 0. It will not tell you that you're married to this other person and you can take his benefit or her benefit. This is in order to get your spouse's benefit, it will be a separate procedure. So, but before we get into that, since this is a statement that actually record your work history and how much benefits that you likely will be eligible to and whether you are eligible yet. For example, if you only have less than 40 credits, it will say you only have 10 credits. You require 40 credits to be able to take benefits. So make sure all of those information are correct. And in order to get it, go to the ssa.gov website that I was showing you, and it will be a place where you can sign up to get the statement online. And I mentioned briefly in the credit episode, this is actually one instance that they use the credit reporting data to verify your identity. So if you do not have a credit report yet, then might pose some problems. So that's why I'm covering this after that part. But if you're currently in the US and there is a Social Security office near you that you can personally walk in, you're welcome to walk in and request, bring your Social Security card with your number, and they're able to pull your statement for you. And I recommend you do this annually. In fact, I think Social Security Administration also tell you to do this annually. If you have signed up for the online account, they will email you every year to remind you to check to make sure that your income history was correct. Second, I actually already mentioned, if you don't plan to work, you do not have work history in the US, like if you're in the US but working for, or if you're outside of US, you're married to a US spouse, and you're currently working on local economy or somewhere else, so there is no paying into the US system. I mentioned slightly before that you can apply for US benefits based on the spouse's work history. And one thing that many people didn't know about is that you are protected actually even if you get a divorce in the future, as long as you were married for over 10 years or at least 10 years. So this has some huge implication. So I've recently heard a story where people, there's this couple, the woman did not get the proper advice and they signed the divorce agreement like I think 9.5 years from their marriage certificate date. So by doing that, she now forfeit the possibility of taking her spouse's work history to calculate her Social Security benefits when she can start taking Social Security retirement benefits. So that's actually a huge implication. So, especially you're so close to that time frame, and 9.5 year of marriage or 10-year marriage is significant. So I'm not saying that people are going to get divorced, but just want to make sure you understand this, especially if you're going through certain situations similar to that. But if you're not, that's great too. And you will just need to remember either your spouse or ex-spouse, as long as you're married for at least 10 years, you can use your spouse's Social Security records or the work history records to calculate your Social Security benefits. If you are married at the time that you need to start taking benefits, then the 10-year rule doesn't apply. And the 10-year rule only applies if it's an ex-spouse. Okay, and the third thing I mentioned, it's possible that you're currently not paying into the US Social Security system. If you're overseas and you're contemplating moving to the US with your spouse, right now you might have another job, you're paying into a completely different system. So you might be wondering, how does that affect your US benefits if you do decide to move? So it is actually a slightly more advanced topic, but if you're interested, you can look up what it's called a totalization agreement. So it will be, you can find them on the SSA.gov website as well. So US signed these agreements with certain other countries. There are not many of them, but it dictates if you move to the US and you did not have enough credits, but you have some credits from overseas, then you might be able to use the credits from overseas to supplement your US credits. So the actual rule is different per totalization agreement. Another possibility is that you let's say right now you're 40 years old, you have 20 years of work history in another country, and then you move to the US, and then you work for another 20 years. So by your age 60, you have another 20 years of work history in the US, you qualify on your own, you were earning high income, all of that. So now you may be thinking, well, now I have 2 pensions, that's great. So there is actually this thing in the US, if you have another pension from that is not, that you did not pay into Social Security, US Social Security system for, the extra pension will actually reduce your US pension. This is called windfall elimination if you want to find out more. It is another yet very complicated a topic, so I won't go too much into detail. But the idea is that you need to know if you have another pension that you're eligible from overseas, from your time overseas, it might impact your future Social Security benefits as well. It's in effect getting taxed extra, so you're not getting the full 2 pension combined. It's combining 2 pension and paying some extra taxes in the US. All right, so to recap, I think the most important takeaway is Social Security is a contributory system. It's not a contributory system. It's a public system. Right now you're contributing to it. Other people are benefiting. And I really hope that the government, our political system get it together so this public system can run in the future. But it is possible that the rules might change in the future. But in the meantime, the only thing you can do, because it's not something you can opt out of, other than working overseas and not paying into the US system, make sure that all your records are correct, on your Social Security statement. Know under what circumstances you might be able to get Social Security benefits before you retire, such as when you're disabled or when your family main breadwinner experienced death. And that's it. I think there a lot of information in this episode, and we didn't even cover so much about Medicare. But I hope this is a good overview, and the information that I mentioned, some of those terms, that you can, if you have more questions, you're welcome to join the Q&A section that we will do after episode 6. or go online, Google those terms, and most likely will get you to some official documents or language on ssa.gov website, which is the official place you can get all your answers. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I look forward to see you in the next one where we'll talk about income tax. All right, bye.